Hey everybody, Hunter, Fisher, Trapper, Trader, Guide, Scout, and Interpreter, and just a country cook, Steve Hall, here in Nashville, Tennessee, along with pretty Miss Sheila running that camera. Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
Thanks for the haircut.
You're welcome.
Sheila cut my hair, got it looking good, even threw a little Steven Seagal hair color in there. Got me looking terrific for today. I got an email from a guy. Dear Steve Hall and Miss Sheila, this is Sam Punzel from Jefferson, Wisconsin. I greatly enjoy watching all your cooking shows on YouTube. Your videos are very entertaining and always make me hungry by the end of them. I'd like to share with you my dad's smothered pork chop recipe. I remember him making them for me and my brother. When my mom would go out on ladies' night out, he would end up doing the cooking. Not sure where he got this recipe from, but I made it and it's just absolutely delicious. And he's got some ingredients here, some pork chops, some stovetop stuffing. We're going to do a lot of stuff with this, and here's how it works. I went to the store to get 6 pork chops, and I like bone-in pork chops just because I like gnawing the meat off the bone. Tastes a lot better to me. And all they had was packages of 4. So I took my little vacuum packer and I vacuum packed up all 8 of them because they're only like 5 cents a bag if you go watch that video on our channel. And I'm going to put 2 of them in the freezer and use the other 6 to season up and sear and get ready for this recipe. So come on over. We're going to make this guy's dad's smothered pork chop recipe, and it's very interesting the way that everything goes together, and it's got some neat ingredients too. Let's get started. All right, let me get the last pork chop out of here. Now, according to his recipe, he seasons them up with Lawry seasoning salt. And I've got some seasoning salt, but it's just whatever the brand was over at Kroger's. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in my pan here. And he wants a sear on these before we bake them. So I'm going to hit this with a little bit of seasoning salt. And a little bit of pepper. That's what he says, just those 2 ingredients on there. And I'll do the other side in the pan. You know, I've been using seasoning salt more and more. It just has a nice flavor and has a few other ingredients in it, almost like some Cajun seasoning flavors. I got to do a little investigating and find out what's in seasoning salt. But this looks good. We're going to get these seared up real nice. And it's just like if you're going to put something in the slow cooker or bake it in the oven with a recipe like we're doing today, you do want to put a sear on this meat first. Get a little black pepper on here. You know me, I like pepper, so make sure I got both of those. Let me get these seared up a little bit and I'll turn them over and be right back with you. I added just a little more oil, about 3 to 4 tablespoons total, because I wanted to get, oh yeah, look at there, I wanted to get it up around the edges just a little bit. I don't really want to deep fry them, but I do want them to be sitting in that oil. Let me get this batch done and I'll move to the next pair. All right, Sam, I hope we're doing your dad proud. There's the first 2. Got a nice sear on them. Throw a couple more in there. And add just a little bit more oil. Give it a second to heat up. And kind of slide the next one in there. How am I doing, Sheila?
Good.
All right. Let's get these browned up and we'll get the last 2 done. I was getting ready to turn the second 2 pork chops and I just didn't want to leave you guys out. Oh man, doesn't that look wonderful? I just had to have Sheila turn the camera on long enough to get a shot of that. Let me get the other side done and we'll do the last 2. All right, time to put the last 2 in here, because I really need to get started on something that he said to do in the beginning of the recipe. I was so concerned about searing these up that I kind of forgot this next step here. Well, thanks for getting a close-up, Sheila.
You're welcome.
I'm going to move these pork chops out of this frying pan. I turned it off, and they're done. Now, I should have actually done this stuffing mix to start with to give this water and butter a chance to soak into this. Now, he said you can either use the cornbread flavor or the pork flavor of stovetop stuffing mix, a 6-ounce box. I bought cornbread because they didn't have any pork on the shelf, but it'll probably turn out just as delicious. We're going to dump this in the bowl. And you notice this bag come right out of this box. I did a recipe here a while back where I used some, what was it, Jiffy cornbread muffin mix or something to make a recipe.
That was funny.
And this was glued in the box, and I got so many emails that said they glue it down in there. Not all the time, because this came right out of here. And I ripped and breading mix flew everywhere. So with that said, now I know that they glue the bag in the bottom of the box so you can stop mailing me stuff. We're going to pour in 1.5 cups of warm water and 1/4 cup of melted butter. And I just use salted butter, just regular, 1/4 cup. Now if you take a stick of butter, that's 4 ounces. 2 sticks makes a cup. 1/4 cup would be 1/2 stick. So you can either put in a 1/4 cup of melted butter or just take 1/2 of 1 stick and melt it. It's the same thing. Let me grab a little spoon here and stir this up. And this is what he was wanting to let set for a while and kind of soak up all the warm water and puff up the dressing and the butter. Boy, does that look good, Sheila? Can you see that?
Yes, looks good.
It looks yummy, doesn't it? This is a very unique recipe. I love this. Now I'm going to move my pork chops over to one side. I'm going to move this frying pan out of the way, and I'm going to move our 9x13 baking dish on this board so I can show you a base layer that goes in there that's even more unique. See you in a second. All right, let's build this recipe to put it in the oven. And I got thinking, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy his recipe right off my email and paste it in the description box under the video just the way he put it together so you can do it that way. And one thing he says is you take a 28-ounce can of Bush's baked beans. He said you can use any flavor you want, but we just use the traditional kind. And you pour them on the bottom. Isn't that unique? You pour that on the bottom of your baking dish. And he says in there to go ahead and schmooze them around a little bit. Oh, I should steal that little teeny piece of pork out of there, but I'll do it when the camera's off. Then he says, and this was easy for me, he said put 1 cup of sweet onions, diced sweet onions, on top of these beans. Can you see this real good, Sheila?
I can.
All right. And this was easy for me because I keep sweet onions in the house all the time. Now, if it calls for white onions or yellow onions or red onions, I might have to go to the store. But if it calls for sweet onions, I've already got you covered there. So 1 cup of sweet onions. I usually buy sweet Vidalias because a lot of those guys from down there in Sweet Vidalia area come and bring us those on those bus groups. All right. Now we lay our pork chops on top of these beans. Isn't this unique?
It's different.
It's very different. I wonder if we can get all 6 of them in there. We might have to kind of lip them over the next one next to it, so to speak. Boy, doesn't that look yummy? Then, before we went into this step, I will tell you that we let this seasoning over here sit for about 5 minutes just so it would kind of thicken up. See, now look, it's got all the water and all the butter all mixed in. But this goes right on top your pork chops. I had to do this recipe. When I read this recipe that started out with bush beans on the bottom, then some onions, then some seared pork chops, then this stovetop stuffing, I thought, man, that just looks good on camera. That is just crying out to be on Cooking with Shotgun Red. Am I doing good, Sheila?
You're doing fantastic.
All right, tell me if I need to turn the bowl or if there's something on my hand, or she always kind of keeps track of it to make sure if there's a fly landing on something, or
So far, so good.
so far so good. Okay. All right. Somebody will probably send an email and say you missed a spot. All right. And there is our stuffing. We're going to just coat that on the top of all these pork chops. Need to run and get something. Be right back. Here's what I had to go get. He said cover it with aluminum foil. We'll put a sheet of aluminum foil on here. Now we're going to bake this in the oven at 375 degrees for 40 to 45 minutes. Now in his instructions that he emailed to me, Sam said if you want it kind of crispy on top, take the foil off the last 6 to 8 minutes. And we're going to do that just to see how that turns out. Wow, this smells fantastic. Fresh back from the oven, I removed the foil the last 6 to 8 minutes, cooked it about 45 minutes total. It's got a nice little crust looking on top. Some of the juices, if you roll it around there, a little bit of them juices from them pork chop is soaked down into the beans and the onions. Come on over, let's plate this up and see what we got. Sam, it looks good. And when I got to this part, I looked at Sheila and I said, I'm not really sure what tool to use to dish this up. So I'm going to go with this spoon because I want to get some of those beans on the bottom and some onions and stuff later. But first, I want to kind of try to figure out where the edge of a pork chop is. You know what? I'm going to start over here because I got them laying on top of. I see what I did. Yes, there we go. That's better. Beautiful. Look at here. Man, oh man. And I'm just going to leave this dressing right on top of here. I think I'm going to dish up about 4 of them into my little dish before I do a taste test. Because I want to leave room. Boy, that looks terrific. It really looks good.
It does look good.
I'm kind of putting the dressing to it, so to speak. Looky here. And then, look at this. You know, it's kind of like baked beans with onions, but duh, that's what it is. In fact, I'm going to stir a little bit of this dressing into these beans. Can't believe his dad whipped this up when Ma was gone so the boys could eat good at the house. You know, and I get asked a lot, how did you get into a cooking show? How did you start out cooking? My father cooked all the time at the house. He always had a turkey going around back in the old days where he'd go down to a veterinarian's office and get a big needle to inject the turkey. They didn't even know what he was talking about back then. Inject a turkey? He said, that's right, it'll come out tender. And I remember that sound. Outside, that little electric motor with that skewer and that big turkey going around and an old $30 barbecue with a windshield on one side with, you know, briquettes all the way around that he kept adding new ones to. And when it got done, it was the most delicious turkey that anybody had ever ate. Put a few more beans on the other side. What do you think, Sheila? You think I had to put a few right in the middle or no?
Yes.
Okay, kind of looks like it's crying out for that little spot in the middle to get a few.
It kind of looks like those cowboy baked beans.
It does, don't it?
It does.
Well, there we have it. Let me move this out of the way and get this front and center, and I'm going to give you a taste test. Sam, like me, is a lucky young man because he had a father that knew how to cook for those boys, and they were eating good in the neighborhood up there. Let me carve up on this pork chop. Look at there, all the way done. And remember, this, because it's a pork chop and not ground pork, it only has to go to about 145 degrees. I'm sure this made it way past that. First, I want to try just a little bit of this dressing because this has got that butter in it. Oh, man. Wow. I love the cornbread. Now I got to make another batch in the future and try the pork flavored. And time for a little bite. I'm going to put a little bit of stuffing on top of the pork chop. Wow, that is so tender. I'm going to make this all the time this way because I've pan-fried pork chops for years, and you have too. And you leave the little crumblies in the pan and you take it out, and the juices that run out of the pork chop, they stay in the pan. You can make gravy out of it, and that's a good thing. But when you take those seared pork chops, like we do in this recipe, create a bed of these baked beans, store-bought, so it's really easy, with some onions, and lay those pork chops in there, cover it with that cornbread stuffing. I might use pork next time just for a different flavor. The juices bake out of there, out of the pork chops, up into the dressing and down into the beans. And they even leave a little layer of juice underneath the pork chop right here. I wish you could see this. You see that? It's just dripping delicious underneath there. It makes it fantastic. I know you're going to enjoy this recipe. We hope you enjoy all of our recipes, and we really hope you subscribe to our channel. Subscribing to our channel is really easy. At the end of this video, little Shotgun Red's face is going to pop up over here. If you click on it with your little pointer, it'll say subscribe. We hope you do that. And next to subscribe is a little notification bell. If you click on that, highlight it, and say yes, then they will notify you every time we post a new recipe. We hope you do that so you get each and every one of them. I'm going to put a playlist of some other great, easy to make recipes over here. And is this the most delicious pork chops you ever ate? If it ain't, it ought to be. I gave a little taste to Sheila, and what'd you think, Sheila?
It was fantastic.
It was fantastic. You know something? Sam Punzel from up there in Wisconsin, I'm glad your dad did a little cooking for you and kind of brought that tradition down to his boys. Because now you have that recipe, I have that recipe, and all of our subscribers and viewers now have this recipe. My dad did a lot of cooking, and that's how I got into doing what we do here on this show. He made everything: peanut brittle, homemade caramels, oyster stew, the world's greatest chili. We might do Hall's world famous chili someday on here. All kinds of great stuff. And I just kind of loved spending time with my dad when he did all that cooking. And I think that was the closest that we were ever together, is when we were outside on the grill or in the kitchen or having fun or just sitting around the table at dinner time. We hope you enjoy this meal. Sit down tonight and say a little prayer for your parents. Whether they're still here or not, their recipes are here, and they're here. We'll see you next time right here on Cooking with Shotgun Red.